Oh man, so I have a huge surprise, something I am so insanely excited about. It's really going to complete this build and make it as crazy as I think it could possibly get. Really, I don't know how it would get any crazier than this. Crazy in the sense of good performing, working well, being capable of doing just about anything you want to do with it. It's going to be so sick. It's up here on the wall. Let me get it down. All right, well, before we get into the thick of it, because I am way too excited to start this project, I'm going to have a hard time stopping once we get going. I want to talk to you about today's video sponsor, Aura Frames. Now, I have given a lot of these as gifts. I've actually ended up getting a couple of them for myself, right? But this one in particular, it's probably the most special to me, because this is for my grandmother for Mother's Day, right? And my grandmother has always been the one that kept and collected the pictures and collaged them and put them together to where I've gotten to see so many memories that I would never have been able to see if it weren't for her saving those pictures and those memories. And so as I've gotten older, we've kind of roles reversed where, you know, she was always the person I leaned on, and then it's kind of switched around, and I thought, man, it would be really cool to be the one that's able to preserve the memories for her, so I can literally preload it with pictures, message everything, have it shipped directly to her like that. Now, obviously, I have hers in hand. I'm going to give it to her in person, hand deliver it. But not only can I get those pictures on it, once she gets it, she can easily put her own pictures on it, right? So that's great. Now we got both our pictures. But then when friends, family come by, remember that time? Oh, remember when we went and did this? They can put their pictures on it. So now you go from having what seems like an unassuming picture frame to this collage of all these different memories from all these people's perspectives all in one place. And it's just the coolest thing. Like, I don't know. I could jibber jabber on and on about it. I really could. I just, for a Mother's Day gift, I think it is absolutely stellar, and I'm so excited to give it to my grandma. So if you're interested in one, for a limited time, you can get $25 off their best-selling carbon matte frame, which is this one right here, by visiting auraframes.com and using my promo code TaylorRay with 2 R's. Again, that's AURA frames.com, promo code TaylorRay, 2 R's. And if you do end up getting one, mention us at checkout. That helps support the channel. So, supporting the channel, cars, we got a lot to do. And I'm so excited to get into this project. I actually just realized my grandma's old Monte Carlo is what's sitting behind me here. She used to pick me up from kindergarten, and it's kind of fitting. Yeah, I'm not even going to say it. You know what I'm going to say. I'm ready to get to work. So what we have here is honestly just as exciting and going to be just as big of a game changer as the NASCAR motor and the dog box. If we just had this in the previous iteration of the car, it would have been a totally different animal. If we had this in the dog box in the previous generation of car iteration with the 6.2, 500, 600 on nitrous, horsepower that is, it would have been an absolute monster. But then to have this and the dog box and another couple hundred horsepower out of this NASCAR motor, this thing is going to be absolutely insane. This is, again, kind of as best as I could have ever dreamed up this build. For those that don't know what you're looking at here, this is a Winters quick change differential. Now, this is the same exact diff that we have in this car that has handled all sorts of thrashing. I mean, shoot, the last time I drove it, just shift locking the dang thing. Tires skipping, sliding into turns, 1,000 horsepower. It has handled so much. But that's not why we need this. The diff setup that I have in this car currently, and had for its entire life as a LS car, is a Ford 8.8 IRS differential out of a Thunderbird. I've had some silly stuff where, like, I broke the stock diff case, which broke axles. I've broken one axle, but it's a pretty stout rear end, and I think it could probably hold up to this. So durability, while more is nice, obviously, less stuff we gotta worry about breaking. The bigger thing here, the fact that this is a quick change diff, meaning we can change our rear gear. So basically this cover comes off. There's 2 spur gears in here. You have different gear sets, and each gear set is effectively 2 gears depending on where you put them. It allows us a lot of rear end ratio options, which means we can dial in our gearing, our wheel speed to match the track. And that was the biggest problem I had with this car. It's kind kind of last bits of competition was that, you know, at the Freedom Factor when we were on the bank, my option was third gear, which is 88 miles an hour, or fourth gear, which is like 114. Big gap there. 114 was too much, 88 was too low. If I could have geared it to do 100, maybe 104 or 5, I could have probably got by without even the nitrous, but I couldn't. And this will allow us to do that. And the Vet here, it has a ton of torque. It's a 7-liter turbo, never limited by power, but even still being able to get the gearing just right makes a world of difference. This car, with this engine, it is a high RPM, 9,000 RPM NASCAR motor. It's gonna make power in a specific window. So being able to dial in our gearing to make sure we're right in that window, chef's kiss. So the reason this is such a big deal is, you know, when it comes to a Vet or an E36, 240 common drift cars, you can find kind of an off-the-shelf subframe solution to put a quick change in it. However, nobody makes one to go in a Miata. So I was debating when I started this build making my own, and then I came across this guy named Ryan. He time attacks rowdy, crazy Miata. He ended up deciding to go quick change solid axle in his car for Link because it would simplify things a lot for his program, and offered to sell me the whole shebang. So this saves us so much time and hassle trying to figure out, I believe these are drive shaft shop axles, the right axle links, the right outer hubs, you know, the knuckles. These are not stock Miata splines, they're different splines. Like, figuring all of that stuff out is really time consuming and tricky, not to mention getting the subframe, finding the diff, all those things. Not to mention, I didn't even realize he was including this, but this is a Torsen limited slip, which I may or may not put in. It's got a spool in it right now. But basically, I was able to buy the whole get up from him, which is everything I need because I have all the suspension stuff. It saves us so much time, so much hassle, and I am so stoked. Super grateful to Ryan for, again, making our lives easy. We got it all ready to go. So now we just need to put it in the car, which is going to require some modifications. We got to cut up the trunk floor and stuff to be able to fit that thing in here. But one of the neat things is that we'll have our old set up as a dropout, which I may have a plan for that. Press, swap, boom, get this whole thing installed. Got all our fancy-dancy rear grip kit suspension stuff installed. And then we can start on all the fabrication stuff again, because that's kind of the last big chunk of the puzzle that needs to be in place to kind of settle out everything else, specifically the fuel tank, which is one of the main things we need to get this thing fired up for the first time. So, that was a mouthful, but I am excited, man. I'm so pumped we were able to get this. Again, it's something I really wanted to do. You know, we got super lucky with this deal. Probably the only one of these that exists. Miata tubular subframe with a quick change in it. So, super excited to get this thing in the car. So let me quit jibber jabber. Let's get to it. Start tearing this thing apart. Why I'm doing it low. Alright, I think that should be everything we need off this thing. Alright, well now we get to figure out how much we gotta cut to fit this thing. Most likely end up cutting pretty much everything. Well, yeah, I mean, most everything out of the back here, but I kind of want to just cut what we have to cut first. So then once we know where this is and our space there, we get the fuel tank, then we can kind of you know, if we want to use any of the material that's here before we cut it out, we can use it. All right, well, before I start slicing, you can see this little cross section interferes with that bar, and then this bar will probably interfere with the trunk floor. Actually, maybe not. It would be pretty close. It would actually probably be okay. Like, we could really minimally cut this, but we've got to add a bunch of stuff back here. We can't reuse the stock fuel tank. It was even tight with the 8.8. So we really need to cut this hump out anyway. So I'm just chewing on this, trying to decide how much I really want to cut, because where it gets a little weird and tricky is, you know, all of this, spider web, all this inner structure. See, we can see daylight through there. Not like we haven't done a fair share of cutting already, you know what I mean? We got the Fred Flintstone spec, but I like to get it all cut so we can start building a tube structure for it. So anyway, I gotta quit jibber jabber and get back to chewing on this, thinking about it, and then figure out what I want to do and start cutting. But I had to show you before we cut it. You know what I'm saying? All right. Admittedly, I think I just wanted a visual record of the way it looked before I cut it, in case I had any regrets after cutting it. You know, at least I'd have a clip of its last days complete. Now, it's something that we needed to do anyway, whether we were going to do the quick change or not. Obviously, the quick change, its fitment kind of determines, you know, more cutting, I guess, to an extent, potentially. But the goal is to cut as much of this out as we can while not making it not a Miata any longer. But, you know, build it back stronger and lighter. Because even with the 500 horsepower setup, this thing was tearing itself to shreds. So it needs to be stronger. But also, with the aluminum block LS, this thing was 2,500 pounds all in. So it needs to be lighter. So those are kind of two conflicting things that we're trying to accomplish here. So realistically, this has to get cut out. But, you know, I don't get very sentimentally attached to cars, but if there's a car I'm sentimentally attached to, it's this thing. And it is kind of a weird feeling to just take a freaking Sawzall to it, but it's cutting apart pretty nice, you know. I gotta say, at least it's giving me that, you know. It's going easy into that good night. It's always funny when you cut sheet metal with a Sawzall. It just cuts through it so fast, like butter. And if it stops cutting fast, you know something's wrong. You know, you're running into something. But these were a little weird to cut because there's this box. That box that the bar was in the way of, but then that goes around a really thick subframe support. And we don't want to cut that out. We just want to cut the sheet metal box out. So trying to, you know, hack our way around this little puzzle here was a little bit tricky, if I'm being honest. But we've got the main trunk floor cut out. And as far as what we have to cut to fit the diff, this is pretty much it. Just these little straggler pieces on these braces, but that's it. That's all we need to cut. But admittedly, I can get a little cut crazy when I get the Sawzall in my hands, and we need to cut this fuel tank hump out anyway. We've got to put a fuel cell in it. That's kind of where it has to go. And admittedly, that fuel cell hump has always kind of bothered me about this car. You know, it's just kind of in a weird spot. It's not as clean and uniform. So it's gone. It's out of here. No more. And again, I just, you know, it was looking clean after cutting the trunk floor out. I didn't feel that regret, that cut regret afterwards. But, you know, thought we might as well just cut the rest of it out since we're going to have to anyway, you know, at some point. And this is also a good example of why this car was overweight. I still have the drip rail for a soft top in here. Why would I have that? I don't know. I don't have a soft top. But now that we cut all that out, this thing's getting a little sketchy, a little light in the rear with the engine and everything still in it. So we need to get the subframe bolted back up in here before this thing tries to do a somersault off the lift on us. And, you know, help kind of keep everything together and figure out what else we need to cut if we want to cut some more. I wasn't planning on cutting anymore, but like I said, I get a little cut crazy. It's a fever type thing that happens when you got a Sawzall in your hands and sheet metal in front of you. I don't know. Woo, all right. Well, it's in there. Check it out. I gotta say, this cut is kind of satisfying. The big center chunk cut out of it. But yeah, no, number one, fits great. height and everything, man, he did a good job tucking this thing up high. You can see where, I don't know if he scraped it or it scraped before. Like, it's one of those things, it's gonna scrape, but I'm gonna do a skid plate under it. But height-wise, it's, I don't know if you're gonna be able to tell, it's up above the frame rails, which is impressive. So yeah, anyway, that is sick. Freaking quick change in the Miata. Ah, man. This is a freaking dream come true, guys. Like I said, just the quick change in the car the way it was, game changer, would be. Just the dog box, both of them insane, but then all that with a big NASCAR motor. Whew, what a feeling, dude, this thing. Okay, so now's where I'm conflicted, right? There's a million options. I don't want to say a couple. Could go a ton of different ways. But basically, I'm considering, this was kind of my original plan, I would say, cutting it here, just behind the subframe mount structure, plating it. I've got a kind of plate over this. I'm going to do a bar tube structure back here, cut this like all the way up to kind of like right where the over fender goes. But then the question is the inner fender, because even with how well I had the car before, I would top out the tire and hit the inner fender. So it'd be nice to cut this out, but this ties all into this structure here. So it's like, do I want to cut all that out? Pretty confident I'm going to cut out at least the center section of it. Actually, how far over does this go? We can cut here and then cut, to here on the fenders, and then, out here, this inner stuff. From there back, we can cut. I don't know. I gotta chew on this one for a minute. I'm chewing a lot on this probably, you'll have that on these big jobs, as they say. It's just one of those things. It's not like I didn't cut the whole center out of the car, but I don't know. I'm gonna look at it somewhere and decide. I might leave that. We'll see. I'm gonna think about it some. But quick change in the car. It's not trying to flip off the lift anymore either. For some reason, I developed this irrational hatred for the idea of drilling out spot welds, and I would do just about anything to avoid having to drill out spot welds. But there was no good way to get rid of these without drilling out the spot welds, and I gotta say, it really is not as bad as I remembered. I don't know if I was just doing it impatiently or what, but honestly going pretty quick. It's definitely going faster than the alternative, which would be me to try to grind these brackets to not even flat. And, just like going a little bit cut crazy with the Sawzall, I'm going a bit spot weld drill crazy with this thing. Just, there's all these little layers and brackets that all tie together that are just really a nuisance when you go to fabricate on top of them and you don't have a flat surface. So since it's going pretty quick, I don't know if I just got some magic sauce in my hands at the moment to make spot weld drilling faster than it normally is, but might as well do all the spot weld drilling I got to do, including this latch bracket, which we could cut, but if I can drill out these spot welds and then leave us something to build to, maybe we still cut it. I don't know, but we're leaving ourselves options. Gotta have options. Options are important. So I got all that stuff done. So now we can start doing the big cutting. Now, I haven't even fully decided just how far we're gonna go with this yet, but I think we're gonna figure it out as we go. I mean, this battery area where the factory battery was is definitely rusty and deserves to be cut out. So that's, it's a good place to start. Get our feet wet. See how we feel about hacking up significantly more of this car. You would think I'd be used to it by now, cut so much of the car out, but I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm having a hard time wanting to cut even more of this. But at least this section I don't mind because it's all rusty and torn up. It's that quarter panel's smashed in. Now the tricky part is trying to cut what we want to cut and leave what we want to leave. So that's why I drill the holes with the step bit to get in at different points to do my cuts, because I want to be able to leave as much as I want to leave, at least. That makes sense. So One of the things I want to leave, speaking of, is this rear taillight valence area, because I think the reality is if I were to cut this all out and then build tubes and tubes of dowels to bolt in the taillights and the license plate area and all these things, it'd probably end up weighing more than this, and it would be really time consuming to make all that and do it. So if we can leave this, it's basically one layer of sheet metal, it shouldn't add too much weight, and it should make our lives a lot easier. So yeah, we basically got to just finish disconnecting all the tentacles of this sheet metal. That's the one of the things about doing this is there's so many layers, and you start to realize the way they build a car, they interlock all this stuff together and sandwich it on top and seam seal it and spot weld it. And so yeah, I think we've got all the tentacles disconnected. Now it's time for the big cut. I have decided we're gonna do it. I think as much as I might regret cutting more of the car, I will definitely regret not being able to build a nice tube structure back here that's lighter and stronger. So yeah, we just got to do it. Now, the only thing is, this cut is the most critical of all of them. The rest are superficial. This cut, not so much. Very important that we get this nice and square and we get them even on both sides, because the worse job we do here, the more work we're going to have to do later. And cutting with a sawzall nice and square is a challenge. So I'm hoping I can get through this in one piece, or two pieces. Past the point of no return now. So now that we've done a bunch of cutting, we got to kind of put the puzzle pieces back together. We got to clean up our mess. We both got to clean up the mess that's there, but also just the hodgepodge. We got things like the cage down bar plates, which the down bars are landing on the frame rail, but the plates are hanging out into thin air. We got exposed gaps where the pinch welds were, and that's kind of the tricky thing when doing this kind of fabrication work, cutting apart a chassis like this, is because of the way this is all stamped steel and pinch welded and seam sealed together, there's not really a great way to cut it where it's not either kind of
just not clean and doesn't leave you a nice base to work off of, but also still structurally together. So we basically got to kind of put it back together. It's kind of cut apart, but even the parts we're keeping are halfway cut apart at the moment. And we got to fix that. That's definitely priority number one. I don't want my frame rails falling apart while this thing's just sitting here in the shop. You know, we got to work quick. Not to sound like I'm complaining, I'm just explaining. Another struggle with welding back to the factory sheet metal is, you know, one, it's dirty, it's old, it's thin, but one of the biggest things that I've dealt with so far on this car is wherever you have two panels overlapping a seam, there is seam sealer between them. And that seam sealer is basically a little FU. It just explodes when you try to weld there for whatever reason, and it makes welding this kind of stuff incredibly difficult. So I also may have not realized that my tacks were not lined up, or my plate wasn't when I tacked it, so I got to drop the subframe out so that way I can cut this thing again, or cut the tacks off and re-weld the second plate and get it back in the right space. I really didn't want to have to take the subframe out because it meant having to find a way to keep the car from somersaulting off the lift, but I figured that part out. I strapped the car down to the lift, so we're good there. I couldn't leave this like this. It would be more work than just doing all that to try to weld up these gaps, because we already have our work cut out for us welding these things in here, because we got seam sealer special spots that we're welding to. We've got the thin sheet metal. Everything's dirty. It's constantly trying to catch on fire because there's grease and grime built up inside these frame rails. So if we get a couple inches of trouble-free weld, it's kind of a miracle. So again, everything just catching on fire, but we're getting there. It's not going to be the prettiest thing, but I'm not even worried about it. It's not even a thought that crosses my mind. This has got to be functional plates, and they're not even that functional. They're just kind of there to, you know, finish it out, so we don't have our cage down bar, you know, tie-in plates hanging out in the thin air. So got to try to get through this welding without fuming up the whole shop. It's the one downside too to doing this kind of welding is means I got to open the doors and let the AC out. It's not an enjoyable thing to smell. Now that the easy part really is done of making those trim panels basically for the cage down bars, we gotta figure out how to tie these frame rails back together, because again it's basically almost closed in C at the moment. You know, normally there'd be a pinch weld on that top seam that tied the top and the bottom together, but right now, since we cut them flush, there is no pinch weld there, i.e. there is nothing holding the frame rail all the way together. So this is kind of important. We gotta make sure we get this right. If we get anything right, hopefully it's this. Of course, I gotta stay on theme, you know, the project, and put some speed holes in and dimple dye them. I may still be a little obsessed with dimple dyes, but also, you know, there's a lot of dimple dyes on this project, so we're just keeping it consistent, right? That's what I tell myself. That's how I sleep at night. This is one of about a million times during this project that I wish I would have just stripped it all down, cut it all apart, and had it, acid dipped or something to get rid of all this seam sealer, all this gunk, all this undercoating, the paint, because it's not a good time. Again, I'm not complaining, I'm explaining. I'm going to make a shirt. No, just kidding. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and it's hard to get it clean when all these panels have so many undulations and dips and divots, and there's so much seam sealer, and the seam sealer is such a mess to try to get off because it just goes everywhere like a spider web. So anyway, we got those plates welded in, so now we need to do something about some serious structure going across. And it's funny, tools in the shop, they kind of have their times where they're just used heavily and then they get a break, and this tubing bender is about to be back into full swing service here because we got a lot of tube work to do. And fortunately, when I rearranged my shop not too long ago, my goal was to have this in a place where I could use it as it is. If I'm going to do a ton, maybe I can pull it out if I need to, but fortunately, it's my first time using it in place. I guess my second, but it works, even with a longer tube like this. So we basically got to tie the two back halves of the frame rails together, and there's probably a better way to do this, to measure it out and get it center, because we're not only do we need to get this dimension right, but it's got to be a double angled cut. So it's going to angle where it goes to the frame rails, but part of the reason we're doing it where we're doing it is because there's the thick, like 1/4-inch plate brackets for the subframe studs that I want to tie it into as well. So that way it's tied into the side of the frame rail, but it's also tied into those brackets. And so, again, measure twice, cut once, or cut twice if you didn't measure enough. Cut twice to make it nice. Ooh, I like that. Cut twice to make it. We snuck up on it. I didn't want to overshoot it and then have to make a whole new piece because I can't throw any material back. I can always cut some more off. So speaking of that, trying to get this last bit of cut is a little tricky. Had to do it on the bandsaw. Thing has been coming in handy. Speaking of shop tools, and then just grind it off and see if it still fits like it did when it was new. That makes no sense in this scenario, but you know what I mean. It would be a whole lot easier to weld this, tack it and weld it, if we didn't have the subframe in the car. However, I don't want this thing shrinking and expanding and pulling around and moving the frame rails around, and then our subframe doesn't go back in. So kind of had to put the subframe in to make sure it all stayed square. That's one of the things with fabrication, the idea, the concept of doing X, Y, or Z is not that. It sounds pretty straightforward, but then when you realize to jig it all up and get it all set up to where it's not going to move or flex or end up wrong, then it gets a lot trickier. But fortunately, it's still not too terrible to get to. I mean, it's we're just chugging away. We're chugging away, and I'm not too worried about the welds looking spectacular. But obviously, I'm trying. I don't want them to look bad. All right, well, bar is in. I didn't go nowhere. I gotta say, I mean, maybe I've done it before. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember, but I don't think I've ever MIG welded like tube work. I don't think. Anyway, I'm pretty reasonably happy with that for what it was, and I'm happy with this. I wanted to get this after cutting it. I didn't want to leave it. I wanted to get it tied back together and everything. This is gonna be way stronger than what was there, and less weight, similar weight. Something like that. Should be stout. We definitely want good structure here because if anything bends, we want it to be past this point. Sorry. That caught me off guard, the cold start. Yeah, so we need to make plates for here for the bash bar substructure to bolt to. We're going to do the same way as the front. We'll have kind of a main, hopefully we don't hit it structure, and then we're going to hit it structure. So then it's like phase 1, phase 2, hopefully never phase 3. We're at a point now where I can leave this and not feel like my frame rails are going to get tweaked just sitting here. So I want to try to put the suspension on this thing and see if and how it all fits. This is one of the tough things when it comes to building race cars is you know, you're putting aftermarket parts that weren't necessarily designed around each other together, and that can create some problems. So there's a chance that this stuff might not fit right because it's designed around a stock subframe, and this subframe is designed around stock arms. You know what I mean? So I'd like to know now in case we got to make any changes, and I'm also really excited to see this Just Engineering stuff on the car. Front and rear complete. This is going to be a big moment. Okay, so we're going to need some... I mean, these are center. I would just imagine maybe he had built it for wider control. Here's the real magic sauce on the Just rear grip kit. It's this rear arm that we can adjust to change our toe independently of our camber. So with the old setup, oh wait, I'm just gonna watch. I thought I was. With the old setup, if we wanted to change the toe dramatically, we basically had no choice but to change the camber. Whereas on this setup, not only can we adjust them independently, and together really, I guess, if we want, but we get way more toe adjustment. Whew, oh my gosh. Wow, that looks sick. Sorry. Yeah, wow. Look, so, yeah, this would now be our toe adjustment. Super simple. Well, I'll show you in a minute. Let me get the other side on, because you'll see what I mean. Wow, dude. Gosh, this thing is going to be such a rig. Oh, man, I can't wait. At a range of travel. One thing I don't have fresh yet for the suspension is the shocks, and I wanted to see how my old shocks fit in there, but they're pretty worse for wear. They've seen a lot. They went through a lot of battling on this car, and yeah, it was, I mean, they fit, but it bothered me seeing the crusty, old, worn out, dirty shock setup on the fresh new, all the fresh new stuff. You know, we gotta keep the new stuff together. Now I do need to get those soon though, because this thing needs to be a roller. Whew. Look at that, dude. What a sight. What a sight. Well, there's definitely going to be a little bit of finagling involved in getting everything to meet up and work together, like the sway bar with the control arms and all that jazz. But it's all in there and it all fits. Man, I can't get over it. It's just such a cool sight. This might sound crazy, but I don't know what is a cooler sight for me. This or when the NASCAR engine went in. Again, sounds crazy. NASCAR engine in there, big deal. But man, quick change, absolutely nuts. It's so crazy to me because I don't know if I have ever been more excited for the just enjoying the process, but the end result of a project and like what it can potentially do. Its potential, man, I can't think of a time I've ever been this excited. And the quick change was, you know, that last piece of the puzzle to really push me over the edge. I'd say probably the only other time was building this car the very first time with the LS, because I had dreamed for years and years and years of having a cammed LS drift car, and I was finally making that happen, you know? So anyway, this is a big deal. And it just... Seeing it with the Just Engineering suspension too, I've been eyeballing this since before I ever even considered doing this rebuild, just to give us a lot more grip potential, which obviously we're going to need now that we got all that extra power under the bonnet, as they say. Yeah, so basically... all that side together, everything fits. We just gotta decide how we want to build from here, but it's in there like swimwear, baby. Oh, it's so cool. I'm glad we were able to keep this. Oh, so something I also realized is that we are almost over the hump of backwards work, which in a project always feels good. We basically, cutting wise, just have to cut, you know, the outer shell of these, or maybe I'll do it before then, I don't know. But basically decide on if we cut this and a tiny spot on the firewall for the distributor, and then that's it. As far as I can remember of all the cutting. No more cutting, only building back, which obviously is a really nice feeling. Like you take something apart, and you're finally, it's at least going back together. Every step you take is a step closer to finish versus further away. Does that make sense? But yeah, look at all the stuff we cut off. It's so crazy to see it all in a pile on the ground. So that being said, man, this has been, I've been bouncing back and forth on projects. Just doing a lot of stuff. Number one, I was getting the vet ready for the LZ Invitational, but I was trying to finish this too. And I didn't really leave myself enough time. So when it started having some hiccups going into the trailer, I started trying to diagnose it. By the time I didn't figure it out, but I think I've figured it out since. It's something I wanted to replace anyway, but it was kind of too late. Adam offered to let me use one of his cars, but by the time I went and got it ready, brought it up there, it would have been halfway through the competition. And then Chelsea offered to let me use one of his cars, but it was during the day of the competition, so I was like, shoot, I can't even get a flight in time. So unfortunately, I missed the LZ Invitational. If you were going, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to make it. It's a struggle. I've been, you know, bouncing projects. There's only so much time. That's like the biggest struggle that I've had lately is time. But speaking of, you know, I've been kind of trying to do the flight thing because I'll never have time to do it. So even though I don't have time, making the time. And I had some really bad flights when I went to the NITO thing with the vet. A flight lesson before and after. And especially the one after, it was just rough. It was gusty. I did not feel confident at all. And between then and this recent one I had, I spent a lot of time on the sim. And I wasn't sure if it was going to translate, but boy, did it translate. I felt 10 times more comfortable, and my worst landing was better than my best landings before, and I really felt in control while doing the landing. And I definitely feel more justified in what started out as me trying to upgrade my old sim rig to building an entire new computer. But this is kind of like my dream little PC build that put it all together, you know, because it's this nice billet case. It is super compact and efficient, virtually no wasted space, air-cooled, all that. So anyway, I've been juggling that. I got it together. Spent a good bit of time on sim. Normally, the sim sits for like a year because I'm so busy working on projects, I never can find time to hop on. Been doing the opposite lately, but yeah, at least it's working, you know? Something to be said for that. Also, there's a plane flying over right now. Managed to get down to Sun and Fun, which is a big, like, week-long plane thing down at the same airport that my flight school's at. And I got to do a demo ride in an Aeropract A32, and that was really cool because I've been looking at those and I thought they were super neat because they're aerodynamically pretty efficient, but while also being able to fly as slow as the slowest flying planes that have all this extra stuff on them. I got lucky in kind of my demo flight. I hopped in with I think the owner of Aeropract USA, super awesome guy. My guess is that he could tell that I was, you know, actually interested, and I looked into these planes and I knew a bit about them because I was interested. And he took me on like an extended demo flight. Hit it, showed me cruise speed, slowed it down, stalled it, all that, and then even let me take controls. And it was, man, that thing flew great. And it was just a really cool experience to fly one and kind of get the feel for that. And the coolest thing for me was the visibility because you could literally look down straight under you. So anyway, yeah, did that. Freedom 500 did that. That wasn't very noteworthy on my part. It was a great event. But I wasn't doing too great. I was, you know, chipping my way through the field. And me and Deegan, who ended up winning it, got into a wreck. His car survived. My car did not. Yeah, so anyway, point is I'm trying to speed run this. I've been doing a lot of juggling, a lot of stuff, and this took me a little longer than anticipated, but it is in. I've got some pretty exciting stuff for the front end, and yeah, it's up from here. Yeah, like we don't have too many steps to get everything we need in here to fire this thing up for the first time. I'm really excited to build this out. Things, lots to do, but it's coming together. Every drivetrain component in place. What a feeling. All right, well, I'm already gonna struggle to chop this up enough to put it all in here, so I should wrap it up. Speaking of, if you got any ideas, questions, comments, concerns on the build, let me know now. Sometimes you guys give me great ideas after I already did something a different way, and then I'm like, it's too late now. So let me know. If you got anything on your mind, any burning suggestions? Not questions, suggestions. Questions too. Okay. I gotta wrap this up, but yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I'm honestly not sure. Roll the dice, figure out what we want to work on next. Continue on this RX-7 bus. I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments which one we should tackle. I'm a little conflicted. I enjoy all of them, having a blast. So I hope to see you guys for that, whatever it may be. But for now, I gotta end it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Here with Alpha, you coming back here today, ma'am?
Oh,
Hang on here with
perfect.
Here with Alpha, you returning today.